Hey everybody, and welcome back to some more Oxygen Not Included. We're back once again with the Impenetrable Gang. It's cycle 640, and we find ourselves in a bit of a pickle at the start of today's episode, because right away we have got 0 kilocalories available to our duplicants, and so they have nothing to eat whatsoever, which is temporarily, hopefully, resulting in a little bit of an elevated stress level in the base. Currently, Mimar up there with 41% stress. And the reason that we have no food right now is that between episodes, I spent quite a bit of time trying to fix our setup up here in space to make it so that our robo-miners didn't just constantly overheat over and over and over again. And in doing so, I kind of neglected our main base to the point where all of our bristle blossoms did not get enough water, and the reason for that is that this little pool of water over here that we were pumping out of fully depleted to the point where there was no water for the base, and so all of our bristle blossoms went multiple cycles without any water whatsoever, which of course resulted in a food shortage to the point where we now have 0 kilocalories. Now, to mitigate this, I have gone ahead and put a liquid pump down in this body of water here, which is collecting the polluted water from our petroleum generator and piping it back up into the water sieve to then go around, of course, through the thermo aquatuner and then finally up and into the base. And I did some number crunching between episodes, and it turns out that the petroleum generator should hopefully be enough, so long as it's running all of the time, to sustain our bristle blossom farm, because this guy right here produces 750 grams per second of polluted water, which over the course of a cycle ends up being about 480 kilograms of polluted water per day, and all of our bristle blossoms combined use about 420 kilograms of water per day. And so if we have the petroleum generator running all of the time, we should hopefully get enough water from this setup to keep our bristle blossoms going, and not to mention the fact that we do also get a net gain of water from our lavatories. Hopefully, this should continue to work and should be somewhat sustainable. Of course, the caveat there was that this has to be running all of the time. And so what I've also done between episodes is I have hooked up the petroleum generator setup to the main grid. And so right here, we've got a conductive wire that goes all the way up to the battery connected to the hydrogen generator. So this battery right here, which then has another transformer and then powers the rest of the base. And so much like with the hydrogen generator, the battery here is set very high. The parameters are right up there at 90 and 99% respectively. And so what that means is that where possible, our petroleum generator should be the first generator that the base uses if it's low on power. Following that, it will then try and use the natural gas generator. Following that, it will then use the coal generator. And then following that, we just don't have enough power. But hopefully, we won't get to that point. Hopefully, all of our generators should be able to keep up with the base's demands. And so now that that's taken care of, before I get into the other things that I've done between episodes, I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And the first thing that I would like to do in today's episode is open up the research tree and select the research for introductory rocketry, because I think in today's episode, we should be able to launch our very first steam rocket into space and try and find our first planet. Now, to do that, I do also think that we have to go ahead and open up our star map, and using the telescope, we have to analyze one of these first 2 planets here. Now, I don't think it necessarily matters which one we go for here, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and click analyze and let I think Stinky it is come up and try and fix this. And I'll get to this setup in just a second here, because I have tried to make this setup a little bit better. It's not necessarily perfect, and it does still have quite a few issues, but other things that I've done between episodes, I've set up this little room over here that we have pumped all of our chlorine into. We have this little gas pump with this gas filter set up to pump all of the chlorine out of the base and over into this room. The chlorine was getting a little out of hand. It was kind of up, round about here, which is not terrible. Our duplicates don't really spend a whole lot of time down here, but just in the interest of getting all of the chlorine kind of out of our base, I put down a high pressure gas vent and pumped all of the chlorine over into that room. Down here at the bottom, not too much has changed. I did have to disconnect my glass forge for the time being, because otherwise this transformer here would be overloaded. It is still overloaded, which is not the best. I'm not too sure why it's overloaded. I don't think that it should be. It's really only powering that one device, and that is the battery. This battery here. So I don't think it should be overloaded, but it very much so seems like it is overloaded for some reason. Hopefully the wire doesn't break, and we'll come back to that in a second here. But for the most part down here, all I've been doing is digging out more fossil. There was a ton of it over here. There still is quite a lot of it over here. And of course, trying to make as much steel as is humanly possible, because I looked ahead at what we need to make the rockets, and boy, do we need a lot of steel. So we're going to let our duplicants continue to work on that throughout the course of today's episode. And heading back up here to space. The problem that we were having at the end of the last episode is that our robo miners would continually overheat over and over and over again to the point where they were essentially useless. And initially I thought this was due to the fact that there were little bits of regolith on the ground that were, 276.7 degrees Celsius. And whilst they are definitely part of the issue and definitely the cause of the issue, they're not necessarily the main issue, right? So what I thought was happening is the robo miners were on the ground previously, they weren't on the wall like this, and they had regolith in front of them, and I thought that heat was transferring from the regolith through to the robo miners. What's actually happening is, much like what's going on up here, the regolith is transferring its heat into the tile. You'll see right now this is at 179.6. It just went down to 179.5 and then again to 179.4. It's transferring that heat into this tile. Therefore, these tiles are getting hot. You'll see this one is at 179.2 degrees Celsius. And then the tiles, of course, transfer that heat over and into the robo miners, which eventually get too hot and they overheat. So this setup is still not perfect because I built it without considering that this is how this works, but it is a little bit better than the system we had before. So the changes I've made are the robo miners are now made out of steel. Previously, they were made out of lead, just because that is the metal that we had the most of. Lead overheats at 55 degrees Celsius, and so already all of these would be broken and overheating if we were to have still made them out of lead. Steel, thankfully, doesn't overheat until 275 degrees Celsius, and on top of that, I've replaced the regular tile with insulated tile, and not only that, but I've also made it out of igneous rock, because igneous rock has the slow heating benefit, which means that the heat is going to transfer slower into the tile and also from the tile, and so although these robo miners are going to overheat eventually, they're slowly but surely getting hotter and hotter. It should take them hopefully a little longer before they do overheat, and maybe by that time we can kind of set up and invest in a better system that will actually stop them from overheating altogether. I tried to do a couple of things to stop them overheating. For example, I put down these two auto sweepers here. The idea being with this is that if we can get all of the regolith off the tile before they can transfer their heat, then the robo miners will never overheat. It did work a little bit. You'll see that this storage bin here is full of stuff that the robo miners have picked up and dumped in here. The problem with the setup is that the robo miners themselves output heat. And so again, even though they're made out of steel, and even though the amount of heat that they output is small, because that heat has nowhere to go because space is a vacuum, all of that heat is trapped within the auto sweeper, and eventually these auto sweepers will overheat and will break, right? Again, another thing I was thinking about doing is potentially having a conveyor loader right here so that we could kind of have all of the stuff put into a conveyor loader, because of course we can't just keep putting down more storage bins, there's not enough space. And so my initial thought was put down a conveyor loader, have all of the items go onto a conveyor rail, and then kind of pipe them along and across and have a chute that just dumps them on the ground somewhere else, somewhere over here, so that we don't have to deal with them just yet. But again, the conveyor loader outputs heat, 2000 kilo DTUs per second, and so if we were to try and put that thing down, again, it would eventually overheat, and thus wouldn't work. So we do have starvation here. I'm hoping that is not the case. We do have some gristleberries ready to go, and our electric grill is set to the highest priority, so someone hopefully will come and make some stuffed berries fairly soon here. I do have to keep an eye out on that starvation notification, because although I do think that we should have enough water now to continually provide food to our duplicants, it is possible that the base gets pretty close to the brink. If that happens, we can always go ahead and maybe kill some of our hatches. And so I'm hoping that's not an issue we have to deal with, although we are, dangerously close to not having any food whatsoever. But all of that out of the way, the thing that I want to work on in today's episode, and the thing that I think we can accomplish in today's episode, is space travel. I think we can build our first rocket and launch it into space. Now, to do that, we have to have somewhere to build our rocket, and of course we have to have something to fuel the rocket. And if we look at this here, you'll see the first thing that we unlock is the steam engine, which of course is powered by steam. So I'm thinking what we're going to do is harness the steam from the cool steam vent over here, which I think is currently active and hopefully will stay active throughout the course of today's episode, so we can harness its steam and use it for space travel. But we're also going to have to set up some kind of silo to actually store our rocket in, right? We could just build it up on the surface, but that then makes it exposed to incoming meteors. And so I'm thinking that what we'll probably end up doing is digging out an area like right about here, like this. And the rocket is going to be quite big. Maybe something, how do I want to do this? I think we are going to do something like this. I don't know quite how wide it needs to be, but if we dig out an area like that, which is pretty massive, But if we dig out an area that big, we should be able to fit our rocket in there. The top of the rocket silo, of course, is going to be covered in bunker door, which you guessed it, requires yet more steel. But if we do something like this, and this, I think 3 bunker tile is enough to store like the rocket. I think this is wide enough and maybe tall enough. I don't know. The height of the rocket is definitely up to us, but if we look again at the research, the 3 items that we unlock are the command capsule, the research module, and the steam engine. We definitely need at least 1 steam engine, and I'm pretty sure we can only have 1 steam engine. We also, I believe, can only have 1 command capsule. The thing that's going to add height to our rocket is how many research modules we put on it. Now, I think you could probably get away with just having a command capsule and a steam engine. At that point, your rocket would be entirely useless. It wouldn't do anything. It would just send a duplicant to another planet and then come back and have achieved nothing. And so that's where the research modules come in. They complete 1 research task per space mission, produces a small data bank regardless of mission destination. Generated research points become available upon the rocket's return. So, if I'm not mistaken, the way that this works is each planet in the solar system has 5 research tasks that can be undertaken. And so we want to put 5 research, if you want to be optimal, I should say, we want to put 5 research modules on our rocket. That way we only have to send the rocket to each planet once to get all of the research points from it that we can. So if we're going to do that, we have to make the rocket quite tall, right? We're going to have a steam engine and then 5 research modules and then a capsule. This might not even be tall enough to make that happen. It might, I'm not too sure. I haven't seen how big the stuff is yet, but I have a feeling this might not be quite big enough here. So hopefully they should be able to get over to here. Yes, this is a reachable dig. We are, of course, going to have to put, I think, some ladders here so that our duplicates can actually get up and mine all this out. So let's do something, I think, like this. And we probably do want to prioritize the building of the bunker doors so that they get built before they come and start digging all of this stuff out. But temporarily, we'll do something like this. We'll also go ahead and, I think, kind of dig out, I guess, all of this. I don't want to dig it all out because it's doing a pretty good job right now, actually, of defending our base from debris coming in on this angle here. But if we dig that out, and we also dig out down here a little bit, I think our duplicants should be able to make it over to here. We'll, of course, also dig out the debris on top, like so. And I think unlike this setup over here, I'm not going to be too bothered about automating this with these guys, with these space scanners. I think instead, what I'll probably do is just have automation wire run along like this, and then we'll just put a signal switch down somewhere so that we can manually toggle it on and off. So when we're ready to launch a rocket, we can just turn the switch off, the doors will open, and we'll launch the rocket, right? That way we don't have to worry at all about meteors hitting our rocket and destroying our rocket or anything like that. It should just be a case of the meteors can't hit while the doors are closed. When we want to go, we flick the switch, and then we send the rocket out, right? Hopefully. So we'll go ahead and we'll dig that out. We do also have to, of course, encase this room in, well, we don't have to, but I'm going to go ahead and encase this room in tile. So I think we'll do something like this, and then I guess just have that go back up again. I'm not going to build this left wall just yet because I'm actually not too sure how wide we want this room to be, but something like this is ideally what we are after. So real quick, we'll cancel that. All of this is currently set to priority 5. I am going to bump this all up to priority 8 so that hopefully this will get done. How are they doing on that research? They're doing quite well. Again, it is a big research, so it's going to take a while to get all of those research points going there. Food-wise, we are coming up again, which is good. As I mentioned, I think we should be pretty much good to go right now, so long as our water sieve and our thermo aqua tuner can process all of the water. I think everything should be fine going forward here. And of course, so long as the petroleum generator here is on all the time. That, of course, does, again, rely on having petroleum, but as you can see, we've got a massive surplus of petroleum, and that should last us quite a while. I did turn this off between episodes because when there's no oil being pumped in, which there wasn't, right now our oil is tied to our metal refinery, and so if metals are not being made, then oil is not coming in, and if oil is not coming in, the door will still close, and it'll just make a ton of sour gas, which is, as I mentioned before, not what we're after. There is a crazy 190 kilograms of sour gas on that tile. So I will go ahead and turn this on now, though, just because we do want this oil to actually start getting processed back into petroleum once again. But real quick, guys, I think I am going to cut away. I'm going to watch my duplicants dig out this massive space over here. I will also actually, real quick, before I do cut away, we will dig over to this guy and scan this just to see if it is going to be dormant or not when we need it to be active. It is active right now, so that's not too much to worry about. But if we go ahead and dig, how do I want to get over there? I think we're going to have like a ladder up here, and we'll just dig across like this. I don't want to interfere with this water too much. I don't want more water flowing down here. We've already got way too much water kind of sitting at the bottom here. I would like to try and keep as much of this water up as possible. So we'll just go ahead and dig this out and then dig a ladder down like so, at which point we can scan the steam vent, we can figure out its average output, and we can see about actually setting it up to collect the steam and pumping that steam over into our first rocket. Okay, so quite a few cycles later, and the colony is looking much better once again. We're up at just shy of 60,000 kilocalories. Stress is right down at 15%, and all of our duplicates are still alive. Nobody starved to death, and everything seems to be going pretty well. So, a couple of things that I did, and actually one thing real quick that I noticed right out the gate here, we do have a extremely hot piece of abyssalite on the floor here, 808.4 degrees Celsius. I was looking at the temperature overlay, and in general, this side of the base is a little bit hotter than the left side, mostly because this room at the top here is so very cold. But I was kind of looking around and I saw this very red little spot here, and for whatever reason, we have managed to get a scalding hot piece of abyssalite right next to this bed. And I have no idea how it managed to get here. I don't know what Mima's been doing with this extremely hot piece of abyssalite, which almost certainly came from this tile here, the ones that are like directly touching the magma at the bottom of the base. But real quick, I think we should probably go ahead and schedule a top priority sweeping of that piece of abyssalite, just to make sure that the room over there doesn't get too hot. I also noticed that we do have yet more chlorine building up in the base, and I'm not too sure why. We do have like some polluted dirt down here, which is emitting some polluted oxygen, but I don't think there's any bleach stone around here. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, we do have bleach stone here. Oh, of course. I always think of this area as being like waterlocked off, but it's not. Any gas that's in here can just pass right through into here, and all of our bleach stone is stored right there. Of course, Isaac, you fool. All right, real quick, let me go ahead and put a storage bin. For now, I guess like over here should work just fine. That means the chlorine will kind of build up in this area. It won't be able to get through to the main base, and for the most part, I think it will just sink down whenever a duplicate goes out through this door. So while we wait for them to finish that, another thing that I did figure out is the power wire, which was overloaded. The reason for that is that previously we were using one large transformer over here, and the large transformer is 4,000 watts or 4 kilowatts. Now, originally, I thought that this meant that it could output 4 kilowatts, but it wouldn't really matter how much was going in. Apparently, that's not the case. Apparently, the transformers do have a small buffer of energy. You can see both of these ones do have 1,000 watts stored within them, or 1,000 joules, sorry, stored within them. And so what was happening is whenever the transformer needed power, it would request 4,000 watts, and then the 4,000 watts would be sent from the 4,000 watt transformer that we had at the bottom here, and we still have at the bottom here. And when that happened, obviously the wire overloaded because it can't handle 4,000 watts, and the whole thing broke down. So what I've done is I've replaced the one large transformer with two smaller transformers, each of which can transfer 2,000 watts total. And so now that should be able to carry the full capacity of the petroleum generator, which is exactly 2,000 watts. And so hopefully all of that is going to work much nicer now going forward. We also have a ton more steel now as well. We've got 6.5 tons in total. And so that takes me up to the main event, which of course is our big old rocket silo that we have up here. And I did look in the rocketry tab, which we now have, and the steam engine, the command capsule, and the research module are all 5 tiles high. And so if we want to have 1 steam engine, 1 command capsule, and 5 research modules, that's 7 components in total, we need 35 tiles of space, which I think is enough. Like, I think we have 35 tiles exactly in this space here. I might make it a little bit taller because I don't know how it's going to work with the nose of the rocket like touching right up against the bunker door here. And I did also replace the regular tile with insulated tile because I realized that as soon as we set this thing off, it's going to output just a ridiculous amount of heat, and really we want to try and keep as much of that heat in here as possible and kind of void it into the vacuum that is space. And speaking of the vacuum that is space, initially I had my duplicates coming in through a hole in the wall right here, and I completely forgot about the fact that space is a vacuum and that all of the gas in my base would just eventually flood out into the vacuum and be destroyed. And so what I did is I made them like walk through the water lock to then get in through the door right here. And I also put in a transit tube so they can get in a little bit faster from the transit line there if they so wish. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and throw down our steam engine, which we're going to put right in the middle of the room, right about there. Now, unfortunately, I don't think you can actually build the next part of the rocket, or you can't even schedule the next part of the rocket until the first part has been built. And so that is set to priority 9, and so should hopefully get built fairly quickly here. It does require a whopping 2 tons, 2,000 kilograms of steel just to make that steam engine. Thankfully, the rest of the components are not quite so bad. The research modules are only 200, and the command capsule is also 200 as well. And so the rest of the rocket combined is not going to use anywhere near as much steel as the steam engine there. And so hopefully we should have enough with the remaining 2.8 tons that we have right here. And also, at some point, we do want our duplicates to dig all of this out so that we can actually launch the rocket out of these bunker doors here. Speaking of which, I did go ahead and set up the automation. It's not quite complete. They've not built this little corner piece here, but as soon as they get rid of all of the debris on the surface, they should be able to build that tile and build the automation wire in it, at which point we then have this little switch here that a duplicate can turn on or off whenever we are ready to launch the rocket. I did purposefully put it on the outside of the door. I'm not too sure how good the duplicate logic is, but again, I have a feeling that if a duplicate is in here when the rocket launches, they might just melt, because it's going to be so hot, right, if they're going to launch the rocket. Like, the amount of heat that is going to come out of that is going to be insane, and so I'm really hoping that we can get all of our duplicates that are not in the rocket out of the room and then launch it. And so that's why I put the switch over on that side there. For the most part up here, this has been working pretty well. You can see the rubber miners can't quite reach everything here, and so we do still have these big old pillars of rock that are in the way right now. But for the most part, all of the machines are still here, although still, you know, increasing in temperature. They've gone from 55 to almost 80 in the course of the last couple of cycles. And so nothing much new there. They're still going to break eventually, but hopefully they're going to let us do a little bit of space work before they do break. And so really at this point, we are just going to go ahead and put this rocket together one piece at a time. Again, it does require a little bit of kind of micromanagement here, because you can't build the next piece of the rocket. You can't even schedule the next piece of the rocket until you've got the previous piece down. We did also scan this guy over here, which has a calculated average output of 1.2 kilograms of steam per second, which is actually quite interesting, because although it only outputs 3,309 grams per second of steam, which is actually lower than our other steam vent. The other one outputs, I think, over 4,000 grams per second of steam, despite the fact that this one outputs more per second. This one outputs more per second whilst it's active. This one outputs more per second on average because it's active more regularly. So we actually do get more steam and therefore more water from this core steam vent here, which is actually really useful, because eventually, once we've used the steam here to get our steam engine going, we're then going to repurpose this steam vent into producing more water for our base, so that hopefully going forward we never have this problem with the bristle blossoms and the farming ever again. So let me go ahead and schedule another research module here, and whilst we're waiting for them to build there, we have to figure out how we're going to get all of the steam from this room over and into the rocket, because there is a slight problem with the steam from the core steam vent, and that is that it is cool. It comes out at 110 degrees Celsius and thus very quickly turns into water. And so one thing that I think we are probably going to have to do is set up an intermediary room between the steam vent and the rocket, where we can heat the steam up a little bit so that it actually stays as steam when moving it from here over to the rocket here. I think if we were to try and just put down a gas pump and then run even insulated tile all the way up to the rocket, because it's so cold, I think it would almost certainly turn back into water before it hit the rocket, and thus we would just damage the pipes and it would take forever to fill it up. And so what I'm thinking is, instead, if we go ahead and dig out a bit of a room, maybe like right here, and in that room we put down another thermoaquatuner, that way we can potentially increase the temperature of maybe some water or maybe even the steam coming from the turbine. Oh, I guess we could just put it in here, right? We could try putting a thermoaquatuner down just like right here and heating all of this up instead of setting up a new room. If we just block off the room that already exists here, that could definitely work as well. So you know what, sure, let's go ahead and throw in like a door real quick so that all the steam doesn't just escape instantaneously. Let's throw down a gas pump right about here. And we will, of course, use a filter, because I don't really want anything outside of steam making its way up here. I think we're okay to put it under the water here. I should probably make all of this out of either gold or steel. I'll make it out of steel just because we have it. Yeah, why not? We've got a fair amount of steel, and we're probably going to get rid of this fairly soon anyway. So we'll go ahead and we'll do something like this. We will have a vent that goes back around for anything that's not steam, which right now I think is just a bit of polluted oxygen that's going to get circled around every now and again. But we'll do that, and then we'll have all of the steam go through an insulated pipe down like so, and then across, and it's going to go all the way up through the floor, through the tubing, and right up into the rocket. Now, the good news, I believe, is that I'm fairly certain once it's inside the rocket, it doesn't care about temperature anymore. I'm fairly certain that the game works in such a way that once the steam enters the steam engine, it stops interacting with the outside world. It just remains at whatever temperature you pumped it in at and just stays in there as kind of a fuel, right? We don't have to worry about keeping this area here nice and hot, I believe. We'll find out, I guess, fairly soon here. Let's also go ahead and throw down our 4th research module right about there. And we should, I think, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just enough space to actually make that work. Now, real quick, I would like someone to turn off this button at quite a high priority, because if a meteor comes in right now, we are going to lose all of our rocketry, and that is a lot more steel than I'm willing to use. Now, I haven't hooked up my bunker doors to power, and so that does mean that they are painfully slow. However, I'm fairly certain that even at this level of openness, they still block debris from coming in. Maybe. Like, most of the time, the debris doesn't fall through until they are fully open, so I think that even right now, they should block incoming missiles and whatnot, which is quite nice. I also think we are going to need one of these gantries here, which we're going to put down, like, right about here, maybe, just beneath the command capsule, so that our duplicate can actually get into the rocket once it's ready to go. So over here, we do also want to put down, of course, a thermal aqua tuner, and that's going to give us the added benefit of also just increasing the temperature of all of the water that's already here, so we can produce a ton of steam really quickly, even if the core steam vent itself is dormant, which it is. It's not going to come back online for another 43.3 cycles. So let me check with the rocket real quick. This thing can hold a maximum of 900 kilograms of steam, and each tile here contains about 1,000 kilograms of water. And so really we just need to turn one of these tiles worth of water into steam. So it's actually a very small amount of steam in the grand scheme of things, even though 900 kilograms of steam sounds like a lot. So I think if we throw down our thermo aqua tuner right about here, we do of course have to figure out what we're going to pump into and out of the thermal aqua tuner. And again, I will real quick replace that with one made out of steel. Now, like I said, we do have to figure out what liquid we're going to pump in and then where we're going to pump that liquid. And I think for now, what I will probably do is just set up a very rudimentary system. I'm going to get a mini pump, I think we'll do. I don't think we need a regular size pump here. We'll get a mini pump. We will pump into here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have an insulated pipe run along. We can't run through there because that is unbreakable. But if we have that run along, up, and across, what I'm thinking is essentially just having some radiant pipe over here and really just cooling this area down and then pumping it right back around, right? It's very rudimentary and very temporary, and the reason for that is that we don't need this long term. You know, we could set up some kind of big system where we use it to cool down, you know, important parts of our base. It doesn't really matter that we have the polluted water here. It's still going to turn into steam all the same. It should hopefully cool down this area over here quite a bit, and again, it's not worth using it to like cool our base or anything like that, because we're only doing this to get 900 kilograms of steam. And as soon as we possibly can, we're going to move on to using the solid fuel thruster and then onto the petroleum engine and then eventually, of course, the hydrogen engine. And so really, we're only going to use the steam engine for 1, maybe 2 rocket launches until we move on to something hopefully a little bit better, right? So this is priority 9. I'm hoping they can still build this. I'm hoping we don't have to have this gantry here. Provide scaffolding across rocket modules to allow duplicate access. I don't think we need this to build this. Like, we didn't need it for the first 3. So I'm assuming we just wait for the steel to be delivered. And right now they're probably working on all of this because this is all probably priority 9 as well. It is, yeah. So while they're building that, we should also look into setting up power as well. Another thing that I did change between episodes is I put a power transformer down right here, because up at the top, originally we had just, oh man, this one is still overloading, eh? We had this wire here, which was constantly overloading, and so I split it into 2, and so now things like the transit tube access and the telescope and a few of the lasers and the auto sweepers are all hooked up to a second transformer just to make sure that nothing gets too overloaded. We do have some asteroids coming in. Again, hopefully nothing will break here, but again, we do have to hook up power to this new area, and I think that is probably going to involve another transformer. The thermal aqua tuner, of course, does require quite a bit of power, but we do have a large transformer down here that can do 4,000 watts total. So I think what we'll do is we'll put down another We gotta play it safe here, because right now, this wire, I think we're running into a similar issue that we did before, because this wire is sending 1,000 watts to this transformer, and then it's sending, you know, however much power can be requested by all of the other machines at the same time. And so what we should probably do is maybe set up a second transformer that we can hook up to our heavy watt wire. For example, if we go ahead and do something like this, and then we have the heavy watt wire run over into that, and then we use like a conductive bridge to do something like this and this. That way, this guy can still receive all 4,000 watts that he would normally receive, but then we can have this run across and up parallel to the pre-existing wire, and then just run that, I guess, in the floor, because why not, over to this stuff. Might as well hook up the door. It's not necessary, but we'll make our duplicates a fraction of a second faster, and then we'll just go ahead and hook up everything else like so. Like that. I think that should work out quite nicely and shouldn't overload any of our pre-existing circuits. And I definitely think I should take a look into this line here that's coming from the first transformer, because right now, I do not think that this is set up in such a way that is sustainable. You can see it is kind of flickering overloaded and then not overloaded over and over again. So definitely something to take a look at in the future. But for now, I want to make sure that this stuff here gets taken care of. Okay, so a little while later, and it turns out it actually takes quite a long time to turn a large body of water into steam. There is so much water in this area here. And so I made a few tweaks to the setup to try and make it just a little bit faster and just a little bit more efficient. The first thing that I did is I put in this insulated tile down the middle to essentially separate the water into two bodies. The main reason I did this is because, as I just mentioned, there was way too much water, and trying to heat all of this up to 100 degrees Celsius was going to take way too much time. And so what I've done instead is we now have the body of water on the right that we're trying to heat up, and then on the left we have moved the radiant pipe over to here, so that now this side of the water is being cooled down and this side of the water is being actively heated up. The reason I did that is because over here, this area cooled down very quickly. The oxygen doesn't have the same specific heat capacity as the water, and so all of the gas in here did cool down quite quickly, and it meant that the water inside of our cooling loop was very quickly dropping to below 0 degrees, at which point it of course turns to ice, and if it turns to ice, it starts to break the pipes, and then we gotta start pumping more water in, and it just becomes a whole mess. And so this, I found, works much nicer. It takes a lot longer to cool this water on the left down, and so the system can keep going for quite a long time. So you'll see that right now, as soon as the save is finished here, the water on the left is about 45 degrees Celsius, and the water that we're trying to heat up is just over 101 degrees Celsius. Now, I am going to try here and heat this up quite a bit, because we do still have a fair distance to go from here all the way up through to here. And although we do have insulated pipe, the insulated pipe, of course, is not perfect. Some of the heat is going to be lost on the way up to the rocket. And so we want to make sure that we're a comfortable margin above 100 degrees Celsius, so that as the steam moves through the gas pipe, it doesn't then recondense back into water. So I will probably leave this running for quite a while here to try and get all of the steam that is generated into this room up to maybe like 110, 120 degrees Celsius. While we wait for that, and I'm going to go ahead and speed this up quite a bit, because it does still take quite a while to heat up the water there. But whilst we wait for that, we do have our rocket over here, which is all but done. We do, of course, have to put our command capsule right on the top like so. And then I'm also fairly certain, as I mentioned earlier, that we do need to put a gantry down right about here. So I will also go ahead and delete the top few ladder tiles here just to make room for that. And then I think at that point we are pretty much good to go. I don't think there's anything else standing in the way of us and space. I did make a few other tweaks whilst I was waiting for the water to heat up. One thing that I did notice is that we now have salt water in this body of water down here, mostly due to the fact that we dug up into like here, and there's a bunch of salt water that was sitting kind of on this level. And so because of that, that does mean that we now have salt water in our main system. And so real quick, I put in a second liquid filter right here with a liquid reservoir, so that any salt water that does come up through this pipe should get filtered out and stored in here for the time being. Other than that, I also built in a little bit of kind of defense right here underneath the big body of water that we've got right here, because I looked at this and I was fairly certain that this was going to collapse through. The igneous rock here is not particularly strong, and so I think if we would have left this long term, we would have seen a big body of water kind of fall through into this area, which is of course right now at 115 degrees Celsius, at which point all of the water would likely evaporate, thus evaporating the water lock and thus letting all the sour gas out. And that does bring me to another point, and that is that some of our sour gas did get out. You'll see here that we do have quite a bit of it kind of up in this kind of middle section of the map right here, and that is because I'm not quite sure how, but this waterlock did break at some point, and so quite a bit of the sour gas did manage to make its way out. You'll see that like in here now, we're back down at like 58 kilograms of sour gas per tile. Previously, we were up at, I think, well over 100 kilograms per tile of sour gas there. Not a huge deal. Most of the sour gas is still stored inside this little area here, and I did remake the waterlock using polluted water and the bottle emptier, but we do have a little bit of sour gas around the base. Thankfully, it is a little denser than the polluted oxygen, and so it's kind of being kept down for the time being, which is pretty good. And so, at this point in time, I think we kind of just have to wait here. We're still just waiting for this water to turn to steam, and then for the steam to heat up even further. Right now, I think what's happening is that the water is turning into steam around the thermo aquatuner, but because the polluted oxygen and whatnot at the top here is not quite as hot, it's then instantly condensing back into water. If we leave this long enough, it should eventually generate a room full of very hot steam, but it still might take a little while here. Some of this water is still quite a bit shy of 100 degrees Celsius, and so do we have the gantry built? We don't. Real quick, let's go ahead and throw that gantry down right about here. Now, I don't know if they can get up on top of this with the ladder. I doubt they can. They might have to have like another doorway here that comes in from the right. I will do that real quick. Why not? We'll dig across like this. And we also do have a couple of things that we have to set up in the command capsule. Notably, it needs an Atmo suit. It also requires a gantry, and it also needs to have a duplicate assigned to it. We are going to assign Stinky to it. Right now, he is ineligible, but if we go over to the skills tree, he is one of the few people who is ready to take on rocket piloting, which allows him to use the command capsule. And then we could even take it one step further and give him plus 10% to rocket navigation efficiency. I'm not quite sure how much that's going to help him, but at the same time, he has the morale leeway to make this work, and so I think we will go ahead and give him that as well. That is going to push his morale needs up quite a bit, but I think we should be able to, should hopefully be able to handle it. There we go. So now someone should be able to come across into here. I will go ahead and assign Stinky to it. I'm not going to do that just yet because I do want to make sure that everything else is taken care of first. And of course, we do also have to clear out this massive amount of debris that is currently sitting on top of our silo here. So we'll dig all of that out. Thankfully, most of this stuff over here is still working fairly well. You'll see we do have a broken solar panel, but for the most part, it is still chugging away. Our rubber mine is, of course, up at 80 degrees now. I think that's up from like 50 at the start of the episode. So again, not a perfect setup, and I do have a few ideas for how we can make this better going forward. But for now, I think, guys, that I am going to once again go away, wait until we have a big old room full of essentially just steam, at which point we can come down, we can turn on the gas pump, we can start filtering anything that's not steam over into this room, and then pumping the steam up directly into our steam engine. And hopefully it won't take us too long here to get up to that 900 kilograms of steam required to send out our first rocket. All right, I think we are about ready to go. We've got a ton of steam in this room. Each tile has got about 375 kilograms of steam. We, of course, only need 900 kilograms in total to fill the steam engine here. And so we've got a ton of extra steam. All of the steam is currently at or above 110 degrees Celsius. Right now, we do have a bit of a lockup here. You can see we've got 5.3 kilograms of polluted oxygen that's been pushed up to the top of this room here. And of course, as soon as we open the door, some of that polluted oxygen is going to flood out, and then quite a lot of that steam is also going to make its way up. But hopefully, we can get in and out fast enough to where there's still enough steam there. Perfect. So now, this is pumping around. The steam is getting sent up. Hopefully, the steam retains its temperature. You can see already, some of it's getting a little chilly. 105. I'm really hoping that it makes its way up to the rocket before it turns back into water. You'll see a little bit did right there, but I'm hoping that's just because it was kind of the first bit. We might have wanted to go a little higher, but it seems like for the most part this is working. There is some steam turning back into water, but maybe we should hold off. Maybe we should hold off and get a little hotter, actually. Let me disable the gas pump real quick, because there is quite a bit of water that's flooding out over on this side here. We are getting quite a bit of steam in there as well. The steam is doing pretty well. We're up at like 70 kilograms of steam, but also we are getting pipe breakages and water leakages all over the place as well. So not the greatest combination there. I think I will let it go a little bit longer then, maybe try and get it up to maybe 115, 120 degrees Celsius, because it did seem like we were very almost there with the steam at that point in time. It almost got to the point where we could make its way into the rocket. Other things I've done real quick, I have delivered a suit. It took me a while to figure this out because there's no deliver suit button like there is on the Atmos suit docks down here. Essentially, you just have to have a suit around. So I undocked one of the suits that we had over here, and then I set the priority of the rocket to like priority 9. The head of the rocket here, the cargo bay, is set to priority 9. And at that point, one of my duplicates just brought it up to the capsule here. So that is all good to go. I've also set up a little bit of automation. I didn't realize it, but the gantry does require power, so I've hooked that up to power here. Our system isn't really capable of running this and the gantry at the same time, but thankfully the thermal aquatuner isn't going to be online too much longer. And so right now we've got 2 switches. One switch is to launch the rocket. Right here, the rocket has both an output and an input port. So the output port will send a green signal when the rocket is ready to launch, once its checklist is done. And the other signal, the input signal, is there so that you can, flick a switch or have some other automation that will launch the rocket for you. So for now, we've just got a little switch here, and when we're ready, we can flick that, and the rocket will launch. Of course, initially, we want to flick this switch to open the bunker door. We then want to flick this switch here to retract the gantry. Right now, it is pre-retracted, but I guess ideally, we could probably go and turn that back on so that it's unretracted for our duplicate to actually get into the rocket, but then we'll retract it, and then we'll launch the rocket, and hopefully, we will successfully complete our first space mission. That is the idea. I did also go ahead and schedule my duplicate to scan the other planet here. We got 2 carbon asteroids, both of which pretty similar. You can see their world composition is mostly refined carbon, coal, and diamond. And I'm fairly certain that as soon as we get the next tier of research, this one right here, the cargo bay, we can actually start to gather some of those resources and bring them back with us whenever we go to a new planet. So for example, if we wanted to get more refined carbon or more coal or more diamonds, we could send a big old rocket full of cargo bays over to those carbon planets and just bring back a bunch of coal. We can go as many times as we want and bring back, I guess, as much coal as the planet has. We are back up at like 115, 116 degrees Celsius. I'm going to give this another try. I think even if we do lose some of it to cold damage, so long as the pipes don't break, and by that I mean so long as we have them set to a high enough priority where our duplicates will come and fix them as they break, I think we should be fine. As I mentioned before, we're not losing steam inside the rocket. Once it's in there, it stays in there and it's all good to go. So I'm hoping that so long as we can get some of this steam up and into the rocket, we should be good to go. It looks like we're doing okay now. We're hitting the rocket at about 101 degrees Celsius. Previously, we were kind of falling down to that like 98 degrees range. So it seems like everything is actually fine. So about 116 is what we need to get from here to here without, turning into water. And so at this point, we essentially just have to wait for this to fill up. It's going to take a little bit of time because there's, quite a bit of gas, and the gas pump can only pump, I think, like 5 kilograms per second here. So it will take a little bit of time for this guy to fill up. But I think at this rate, we should be able to fill this up. And there we have it, 900 kilograms of steam inside of our steam engine. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and turn off this gas pump here, because otherwise the steam is going to stay inside the pipes and eventually cool down into water. So we are going to see some broken pipes here because our steam has nowhere to go. But we do now have 900 kilograms of steam inside our steam engine. And so we are pretty much ready to go here. So I think what we will do is we'll go ahead and assign Stinky to the rocket. We will, of course, once again, as we've done many times before, clear out the top here so our duplicates can actually dig that out. We will open up the bunker doors. We will now retract the gantry because I believe that Stinky is inside of that rocket. I'm fairly certain I did just see him jump inside of it. It does say population 7. Is Stinky not counted as part of our... Hold on, if I unassign him there, does he come back out? Yeah, no, we're okay. Whew. For a second now, I thought maybe... Oh, real quick, don't turn off the bunker doors yet, because it looks like they are very much so under attack. It did lower my population temporarily to 7, and I think it still has. He's in there, right? Yeah. I'm fairly certain once he comes back, my population will go back up to 8. I was, for a brief second there, terrified that one of our duplicates had just died and I'd not noticed. Thankfully, I don't think that is the case. I would like to dig out this as well. Not the perfect setup, by the way, that we've got up here. A lot of this is very janky at the moment. It definitely needs some reworking. You'll see over here, my space scanners did break, and so right now we're in the process of rebuilding those temporarily. Of course, just as I'm about to launch my rocket, the world decides that it's time to send a meteor shower down. All right, real quick, dig this out, please, so that we can actually launch this rocket. Open the doors. The gantry has been retracted, and then as soon as the doors open, which does take a while, by the way, they are once again not powered, so it is going to take a couple of seconds here to actually open this door. But once it's open, we should be good to go. Also, it does help, especially if you actually have your automation wire running across. I'm not quite sure how that happens. I guess the bunker door can stop meteors from hitting things below, but it can't necessarily stop the automation wire within it from breaking. I have noticed up here some power wires breaking from time to time, and so I guess that it's not completely foolproof. So we will schedule some automation wire here, at which point we should hopefully see the doors opening, because a green signal is being sent. There we go. Very, very slowly. Destination not selected. Okay, we are going to select, I guess, the first that we saw here. I'm not going to launch rocket just yet because, again, we've got to wait for the doors to open. Otherwise, I think it would actually just explode inside of this silo here. Now, I am fairly certain that some of this stuff here is going to break, like these ladders and this plastic pipe and some of this wiring. Hopefully the gantry won't. The gantry is made to withstand 2,200 degrees Celsius, so hopefully that will not break here. I assume this does work. I assume the rocket can go past these bunker doors, right? We're not going to just slam into those. I'm going to try it. We're going to slow right down here to speed 1. I have toggled this to be on. I'm going to set this to top priority. If somebody could come and flick this lever, I will speed it up a little bit so they can, flick the lever. But as soon as the lever is flicked, we will then go back down to the lowest speed and we will watch, hopefully, our first rocket launch. There it goes. It is rather hot down here. It actually freaking worked. Look at that. We have our very first rocket, which does have a name, but I've completely forgotten what the name of our rocket was, but I'm sure maybe we can find it on the star map. It's not showing up on the star map yet. Maybe once it gets high enough, we will actually see it on the star map. But here it goes. Stinky off and away. He's the first to leave this asteroid that we found ourselves on at the beginning of the series. There it goes. Into space. There is, as I mentioned before, a lot of steam and a lot of heat down here. Not quite as hot as I was anticipating. Maybe in the future, some of like the hydrogen and the petroleum will get even hotter. But for now, 100 degrees Celsius is not super bad. It is, of course, very, very hot. But all of that should disappear out into the vacuum of space if we just leave it here. There is some stuff broken, like this insulated gas pipe here is broken. But for the most part, everything here is working just fine. And so now, I guess really it's just a case of hoping and waiting that he comes back. I don't know. All we can see here, we've got the rocket underway. Genesis Voyager 1. Status is underway. Passengers 1. Time remaining 2.7 cycles. So just a few cycles before this guy. I don't know if that 2.7 cycles refers to how long before he gets there or how long before he gets there and back. But nevertheless, guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Oxygen Not Included there. Next time we'll come back, we will welcome Stinky back to the colony, hopefully. I do want to make sure that these doors stay open, I guess. I mean, I don't know actually at this point. I think we might want to leave them closed, but then at the start of the next episode, keep a hawkish eye out on the doors to make sure that they are open for when the rocket returns. Otherwise, again, I think we could be in for an explosive situation. But nevertheless, as always, guys, if you did enjoy the video and you want to see more Oxygen Not Included in the future, be sure to go ahead and hit that like button. It really does help out a lot. Leave a comment down below, subscribe if you're new here to get notified as soon as new videos go out. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.